All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, wherever you are in this beautiful world. Welcome to our Inner Circle Live pre-New York session. I'm your host, Ryan Carthage. You'll be joined shortly by my also partner, Mr. Ben Allen. Hope everybody's doing well today on this beautiful Tuesday. As always, let's turn off all distractions, grab a pen and paper, let's take lots of notes, and let's make sure that we participate and engage. And as always, we want to start our day off by taking massive action. And action stands for accepting all possible losses before entering a trade, preparing you for any outcome, centering yourself, body, mind, and spirit, ensuring a balanced approach to trading, trusting your education, strategy, trade skills, and intuition. Imagine your trade successful materializing, obeying your trading strategy, avoiding decisions based on greed or fear, and never looking back or stopping once your trade has commenced. All right. So let's get underway. Apologize for the delay, some technical difficulties this morning. Um, but we are ready to rock. So let's head over to trading economics, get an update on things. And we use today just get caught up from the holiday weekend, see how things are moving, see where things are, see what things transpired over the weekend. All right. So first up, Germany exports fall more than expected. Um, Fall more than expected. Uh, it fell by 1.4% month over month to a 4 month low in May, following a downwardly revised 1.6% drop in April and significantly worse than the expected 0.2% drop. Um, Exports to the US sank 7.7%, hitting the worst levels or hitting the lowest levels since May 2022. As trade continued to be impacted by tariffs introduced by Donald Trump's administration. Meanwhile, imports also fell, more than expected, dropping 3.8%, and widening the trade surplus to $18.4 billion. All right. And you have Donald Trump kind of going back and forth with his imposed deadline, which we'll talk about shortly as well. But um, some tariffs were announced, letters were sent for tariffs to be implemented on August the 1st. And here, right, euro slightly to $1.17, its highest level since August 2021, as trade tensions eased after the news that the US had proposed a deal to the EU maintaining a 10% baseline tariff, with exemptions for key sectors such as aircrafts and spirits. However, Washington gave no indication that it would extend exemptions to politically sensitive areas such as cars, steel, aluminum, and pharmaceuticals. All right, that's a big deal coming out of the Eurozone, despite the EU's request. The EU is aiming to finalize a preliminary agreement with the US this week to lock in 10% rate beyond August the 1st deadline, with negotiations continued toward a permanent deal. Meanwhile, the EU announced it was preparing retaliatory tariffs on a range of products in response to the U.S. metal duties, right? So those higher tariffs on aluminum and steel, the EU is going to come back with some retaliatory tariffs because of those things. Officials warn if an agreement isn't reached, further actions such as export controls and restrictions on U.S. access to public contracts could be implemented. Okay. So something to watch there. Okay. On the monetary front, markets are now pricing in one more rate cut from the ECB this year. Okay. So we're seeing the euro pull back a little bit because there's potential for one more rate cut coming out of the eurozone. So we're getting that priced into the market now as you're seeing some pullbacks on some of the euros. Okay. So that's where we are coming out of the eurozone. You have Brent crude. Futures fell to around 69.2 on Tuesday, retreating from a 2 week high as U.S. tariffs fan fears about the demand outlook, while OPEC output hike threatened to swell a supply glut forecast for later this year, President Trump on Monday unveiled the first in a wave of promised letters to threaten to impose higher tariff rates on key partners, including levies of 25% on some on goods from major partners such as Japan, South Korea, which will take effect August 1st, right? So that deadline that was today or tomorrow, the 9th, right? He's pushing to August 1st, but he's sending out letters of the tariff amounts for those countries and saying they'll be implemented on August the 1st. Meanwhile, OPEC Plus on Saturday agreed to boost output by 548,000 barrels per day in August, the fourth straight monthly hike and larger than analysis had anticipated. The move will restore nearly 80% of the 2.2 million barrels per day in voluntary cuts made by eight OPEC members. However, overall losses were limited by renewed geopolitical risks as Yemen's Houthi rebels launched a second attack on vessels in the Red Sea, stoking fears of potential disruptions along the shipping routes. All right, I got to look into this last part, but that battle in the Middle East continues. All right, from different parts, different areas, it continues to pop up, and it hasn't gone anywhere. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. But what we could be looking at is the market to start to price in this additional 548,000 barrels per day. So we could see oil push deeper. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that and see how that goes and how that balances between the geopolitical risks. Okay, so we'll take a look at oil and the yen is the other that I wanted to get some notes on. Japanese yen weakened past 146 per dollar on Tuesday, hitting a two-week low after U.S. President Trump announced 25% tariffs on Japanese goods set to take effect August 1st, while lower than the earlier 35%. The new rate remains significantly higher than the baseline of 10% imposed on most countries, adding pressure on Tokyo to reach a deal with Washington. Japan Prime Minister Ishbiya said Japan will continue to negotiate with the U.S. In pursuit of a mutually beneficial agreement. On the domestic front, Japan current account surplus from May exceeded expectations, offering some support to sentiment. However, economic data showed weaker than expected wage growth that has dampened expectations for further rate hikes by the Bank of Japan, putting downward pressure on the yen, right? So those conversations we've been having about the yen being weak and it continuing to take longer and longer for those rate hikes to be implemented, the data continues to fall in line with that thesis, right? So the yen continues to weaken, and we'll look at some of those yen crosses, and those plays are continuing to play out um, as generally expected there. All right, so that's where we are there. Over to the calendar, we have Aussie cash rate. This wasn't in the notes here. There was a forecast of a cut, and they ended up holding rates, right? So Australian dollar held rates where they are. So we're likely seeing some Aussies push, gain a little bit of strength there. Let's see what notes they have. I have to read the notes on the Aussie to see where they are there and the thoughts, but held rates. Okay. Um, Today we have not a ton, not a ton. CPI for China and cash rate for the New Zealand dollar this evening. So take a look at those. Tomorrow we have FOMC meeting minutes at 2 o'clock. All right. So it's going to be key and what the Fed is looking at. Jerome Powell, in some of his statements last week, he said if it weren't for tariffs, they'd be cutting right now, right? So the market is continuing to price in cuts from the Fed and really shrugging off the fact that they're holding rates, all right? Um, so we'll watch those meeting minutes on Wednesday, Thursday. Unemployment claims for the dollar. FOMC members speaking. Natural gas storage. Keep an eye there on that gas. Um, Central bank speakers out of the UK also speaking tomorrow. Okay, so tons of speakers throughout the day. And then on Friday we got GDP for the pound, and then employment rate, employment change, and unemployment rate for the Canadian dollar. All right, so slower week this week, but central bank speakers, meeting minutes, and some of your commodity currencies with rate statements. All right, that's what I got right now fundamentally. Any questions from anybody or anything to add from a fundamental perspective? No, no, no. All right, cool deal. Um, let's hop over. DXY. Come down to the daily, and overall, we're still headed down. All right. We had this 50% retracement headed to the downside. We're looking at a potential retracement on the lower time frames here. Okay. Um, uh, which is expected, right? Pullback, retest these support levels, and then headed to the downside again. So looking at some retracements on the lower time frame. So we'll see if the dollar is able to settle in and see some of those pullbacks come into play. So here on the 4, right? This is our capital fib, 618 retracement, matching extension, right? We got our zone mapped out there from a higher time frame, weekly D extension, all the way down to our 1 hour levels, right? So looking at these pullbacks and just continuations to the downside. Right? So when we come down to the 1, this sub fib 8020, right? There's our capital fib down 618. So we're looking at that D extension overall, but we could get a pullback before that. All right. So we'll watch the fundamentals to see what happens. But, right, I'm looking at that retracement there. Okay. So that's the DXY pullback potentially coming and then headed down to our perceived levels. All right. So that's there coming to the dollar yen. And this one is interesting, right? We got an 8-6 retracement. We got a weak dollar. Um, but we also have a weak yen. So this one is just bouncing back and forth here in this range. So coming back to the top of this wedge, as we talked about previously. So I'm gonna watch to see how the dollar moves. If we get dollar retracement, we could see these continue to rise here against the yen. All right. Um, so we'll keep our eyes on this one overall with this larger fib in play here. All right. But we know we have an extremely weak yen, but at the same time, we also have an extremely weak dollar. So the upside momentum here could be capped. So we'll watch and see how this consolidation goes. And this consolidation could also extend out further as well. So um so not a lot of ton not a ton doing here on the dollar yen, right? Still caught in our range between 148 and 142. Okay, so we're still range bound there. Then down on your 1, you ran the fib off your low. AB boundary, right? So watch for 80-20 here. You holding long, Joy?
Yep.
Good work. 144, 106. Nice work. Down in this area here. Great work. Just 7 in the chat for Joy on that. Yeah, Carolyn. Um, Fed is blaming Trump. But it does make some sense because of the uncertainty. Um, so let's watch for potential 80-20 here on the 1 hour. If we push into that zone and then see the dollar weaken again. Okay. So that's the dollar yen. I'm going to come back to that NZD CAD because we got some opportunities there. But I want to take a look at just quick review of these yens overall, right? This is the move we've been playing to the upside on the euro yen. 86 retracement, tracking to the matching extension at 178. Okay. Got a couple highs here weekly and daily at this 175 range. But we'll likely break that and get to that D extension. Okay. I was looking at potentially that shifting for the yen, but that data is not coming into alignment with the Bank of Japan shifting that narrative at all. So we'll see these continue to move to the upside against the yen. So we come down here to the 4. We're running to an 80-20 there, so we could see a pullback. Yep. So that's our move to the upside from that C on the daily. We got an 80-20 here. Okay. So watch for a pullback and then a continuation to the upside on this euro yen. Okay. If we have some of that pricing in uh of another rate cut coming out of the eurozone, right? We'll keep our eyes on a retracement here. All right. So we'll look for that move down in the low price. We'll get back long and get us to those higher levels there. All right, so that's the play on the euro yen, 80-20 potential to the downside, and then low price to get back long. All right, so we'll watch those opportunities, see if we get that retracement there. Okay, down to the 1. Got an 80-20 as well. Oops, nope, that's the 4 hour. You're almost in the 80-20 zone, right? Another push to the upside, pushes into that zone there on the 1 as well, right? So we got some confirmation on the 4 hour and the 1 hour of 80-20. So we'll watch for a retracement of some sort and then get long. Okay. Questions on the euro yen? No? All right. That's where we are there. Pound yen, similar story. This is our move here. 8-6 retracement. 8-6 retracement. We're trying to, that's a larger fib there that we drew in manually. Also 8-6 retracement. So 211 is the target there. But we'll work on the smaller one first. And we're coming into this resistance at 198. I haven't been able to break through it, right? But I do think we will. Cool. I do think we will get a break at this level to continue that move to the upside, getting to that 202 and then ultimately to 211. All right. Um, So again, all right, similar story with the yen, looking for those moves to the upside to continue, right? So look for a break and retest here, and then that continuation long, headed toward that 211 area here. Boom, that's our target. All right. So that's the daily. Come down to the 4. And we had a nice retracement here, right? Last week, getting us to that 618 retracement zone. And then you see the move up. All right. So beautiful ABCD waves playing out here on the 4, as we continue to track this move along, getting to those higher levels. Okay. And then on your 1, there's a larger fib with a potential 80-20 play here. We'll see if we get a move down and then continue long. All right, so that's the pound yen. Any questions on this one? All right, just continue to look for low prices to get long on these yen. All right, so back over on this side. S&P 500. All right, curious to see if we'll get a catalyst to move this down. All right, we got a stochastic in the sell zone starting to press down, but we could be in a situation where we see the market continue to rise. All right, U.S. stock market, because that tariff implementation date is pushed again to August. It looks like he'll continue to kick this can down the road, and just use it as the market has been pricing in, just as threats to push deals, but not really follow through on them. All right. Um, so what we could see instead of a full retracement here is we could see a retest of these highs in this B boundary area around 6,046, and then a continuation to the upside. All right, so we'll look at on the lower time frame, but we do have an 80-20 here, but that retracement could be capped in this area, if we get it. Just because of the things that are happening with tariffs not really being implemented, and um, and basically the control being given over to Donald Trump to do what he wants. All right. Um, so we could see things just continue to align with moves to the upside, at least through the month of July, as Benny talked about, right? And just looking at historically in the cycles in the market, seeing rallies in July, and then moving into your fall months, seeing those retracements come. So we could see prices push up, um, what the market is calling a melt up, and see things rally to that 6,500 area before we get a larger retracement and then potentially another move up, right? So we'll continue to watch this here, but 80-20 on the daily, come down to the 4. This is what that looks like on the 4, right? You see that resistance level here. So this is a secondary option. If this level holds, 6,046, if that level holds, we'll look for price to continue to rise. If that level gets broken, then we look for that full deeper retracement, um, and then a low price to get back long. Okay. So that's on your 4. And then down on your 1, similar story, 80-20 here as well. Right? So we're watching this on all 3 levels. We got stochastics a little bit back and forth here. Got stochastic coming out of that buy zone here on the 4, right? And it's pushing down on the daily. So we got some back and forth. So we'll watch to see, especially tomorrow, with those meeting minutes, if we get a catalyst from the Fed that, or even some of the central bank speakers, that moves this market to the downside at all. Okay. So we'll watch those things and see what the catalyst is for that move down. Okay. That's the S&P 500, NASDAQ. Similar story, right? Daily, boom, 80/20, right? So same thing. We got stochastic on the daily pushing down out of that sell zone. Okay. So this retracement could also be capped at previous highs. All right. So we're going to watch this as things evolve, right? But this could be capped at 22,269 and then that move higher. Okay. So we'll watch that there. Come down to the four, right? There's your 80/20 on the four as well. We're just inside that D extension here. So this could make a little more sense. Stochastic coming out of that buy zone here. Okay. So looking at these continue to move to the upside regardless. I don't, like I said, I don't know that we get a deep retracement on these just because of the current market conditions and us being pretty much in a risk off, I'm sorry, risk on environment right now. Tax bill passed, um, tariffs being pushed off. So we're in a risk on spot. So again, it's going to be kind of on the Fed and what happens there and what that narrative is, and then how the market takes that based on the things that are happening in the background with Donald Trump trying to replace Jerome Powell. Okay, so we got a lot of different forces happening um, that we keep our eyes on. Okay, so that's where we are. Well, all right, let's go over to stock futures edged lower on Tuesday after Trump unveiled revised tariff rates on 14 countries that have yet to reach agreements with Washington. The updated measures include 25% levy on key exporting nations such as Japan and South Korea, as well as Laos, uh, Myanmar, Cambodia, Thailand, Bangladesh, Serbia, Indonesia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, South Africa, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, and Tunisia. Trump also signed an executive order extending the deadline on reciprocal tariffs to August 1st from previous date of July 9th, noting the decision followed consultations from senior administration officials. Further escalation, Trump warned of additional 10% tariff on countries supporting what he described as an anti-American policies of the BRICS. That's interesting. So this tells me he has major concerns about these BRICS nations and what they're developing. Referencing the blocks, summit currently underway in Brazil. Um, in Monday's regular session, the Dow was down 0.94%, S&P declined 0.79%, and the Nasdaq down 0.92%. So almost 1% across the board on the declines from Monday. All right, and that's on the S&P 500. For US 30, I don't have any notes there, and no notes there. So overall, that's kind of where we're at. All right, so we'll see, right? We saw a little move to the downside, but not much yesterday, right? This little retracement here, but like I said, if we see a deep retracement, I don't know that we break through the previous highs on any of these indices. Okay. So we'll keep those in mind. That's the S&P 500. Um, the Russell, the small cap stocks, right? We're pushing to the upside. Uh, okay. Coming off those lows. I don't know what's happening here and why I'm not getting more data, but we'll roll with it. Weekly time frame, we're pushing into that 118, 127 zone there. From a daily time frame perspective, right? This is where we are. We got a 50% retracement and we're headed long, right? So all signs again pointing to the upside. We got stochastic in the sell zone here, but like, these retracements on the Russell could also be limited. And then we'll look for those continuations to 2321 here. Okay. Coming down to the four, 382, matching extension 2300. Right. So overall, we're headed long here. We could get some short-term retracements, but overall, we're pushing long on all of these indices. All right. 382 there, headed to the upside. Okay. So that's where we are from an industry perspective. Any questions on those? No? Oh, okay. Natural gas. Continuing to watch this one as it just bounces and hovers at some of these lows. Um, I'm looking for additional data on these. So if anybody has any notes, any thoughts on natural gas, definitely open to hear those thoughts. Overall, I'm still long, but my question is do we get a press down at all to these lows around 285? Okay. So that's what I'm watching for. We have potential for, oh no, that is a crown pattern there. Potential for a crown pattern, right? So keep my eyes peeled here to see if we get that move to the downside. So that's in the back of my mind there. Okay. Um, so watching the developments there and see how things move during this traditionally off season for natural gas. But we do have a lot of developments when it comes to AI and things like that are also using natural gas to support and put a floor under prices here. So we'll keep our eyes there. Coming down to the four, this is where we are here. All right. I don't have I don't have any larger fibs that got taken out in both directions. So we zoom in here and we look at where we are. Stochastic pushing up. All right, we weren't able to take out that B boundary. 50% retracement, not able to take out the B boundary yet. All right, and we're pushing back to the upside. So continue just to monitor the back and forth overall to see where prices end up landing. And down on our one, we got a 50% retracement, not able to get to the D extension there. Okay. So we're stalling in this range, which for those sitting long is a good thing, right? But we do have that potential to head lower. So watching the developments there. Okay. So that's natural gas, kind of in between right now, just in consolidation from a lower time frame perspective, with the potential to press a bit lower before we get back long. A lot of your analysts and participants were looking at a 330 price range on the low side. And we got there, right? We didn't get to that D extension here, 328, but we got to this 330 area, and you see, you have buyers come in and try to push the market up. So, watching to see if that level holds, right? That's where your market participants were eyeing. Um, And so we'll watch and see the developments there. Also keep your eyes on um, the use of natural gas for energy production, electricity production, energy production for your AI facilities. Um, it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing, like to the point where Elon Musk is trying to transport a nuclear power plant from Europe to Texas. All right. Um, so keep your eyes posted there. It takes a long time to build nuclear power plants, like 5 to 6 years to build them. And so the way the power usage for these AI facilities, the amount of usage is pressing the limits of the grid in ways that we haven't seen before. And so power has to come from somewhere until they get to nuclear power and um, I forget the other type of power that one of the politicians was talking about, but um, yeah, the world isn't ready for the amount of power that's needed, and they're trying to find other ways. Like I say, including Elon Musk, um, trying to transport a nuclear power plant from one country to another. Joy, what's the deal?
So, in my glances last week, I seen, or over the weekend, I want to say it was Japan, that they're about to put this huge turbine in their ocean for another alternative source. And I wondered if that had anything to do with providing the energy that they needed to their nuclear plants and stuff like that.
Ah, that's a good thought. So there's a lot happening um, in that Southeast Asia area, in the oceans over there. There's a lot of material um, on those sea floors that they're discovering. This research has been happening for a while. Some of the stuff is starting to come out over the past year or so. There's lots of material. Some of the material they're trying to use for batteries and battery production, but tons of material for energy production overall. So that could definitely be something for sure, for sure. I'll look into that a little bit more as well and see what I can see. But it's definitely potential for it. Absolutely, absolutely. So we'll keep our eyes peeled on that, right? Trying to find out, and even space exploration, right? It's for resources. It's for resources and trying to figure out how to bring resources to um, back to Earth, be it from the sea or from outer space. So um, tons of things happening all around us and things that we aren't privy to just because of our limited scope of things. But the more we expand that awareness, the more we see these things that are happening around us, and ultimately it adds to the opportunities that are available for us to take advantage of in different spaces. So keep your eyes peeled on some of that stuff, and just go on a Google search or hop into Chat GPT, give it access to use the internet and ask it some of these questions and see what you get. There's some interesting things happening in the world. All right. Yeah, so that's where we are on natural gas. Oil came down to the 618 level or just shy of that 618 level. This daily support level has held at 64.95. We're unable to break below it. All right. And so ultimately, looking for prices to move to the upside. It's just a matter of when. Right. It's just a matter of when. Tonight you ask Chat GPT night. I'm with that. I'm with that. No, definitely dive in, and that research is fascinating, man. The stuff that you're able to learn at the pace that we're able to learn it is mind-boggling. Um, but oil, we're looking to see if we get a catalyst to move it to the upside, or do we continue this move down? Right? 8-6 retracement. So this is actually a new fib here. You keep forgetting that fib there. Boom, right? So we got a 50% retracement already here, right? Do we push lower over time, especially going into the fall with those added 500,000 barrels per day? So something to keep our eyes on, right? As we move through and how we see price moving, that balance between geopolitical risk and oil production. Okay. So that's kind of the balance and what I have my eyes on. But we broke this cloud. We came back, retested the cloud. Do we get another push to the upside before we head down? Okay. Um, One thing I will say is if we do get the catalyst to move this to the downside through the fall, and we get down into these $33 levels, I'm buying. All right. I'm buying. So, yes, there is an oversupply concern, Joy. Because they're OPEC approved for an additional 540 some odd thousand barrels per day in August production. So they're continuing to ramp up the production as we move into the fall, um, which gets them back to kind of previous levels before they started these reductions, right? And so we don't have as much um, we don't have as much oil usage throughout this busy season so far. And with them continuing to ramp up production, we're gonna have an oversupply, right? And that'll push as that comes into play, right? They have their meetings to confirm those production levels, and as that occurs, we could see, like I said, a move higher first, and then a move back down. So we'll continue to watch those levels and see how it plays out, and if they make any changes or adjustments as we move through the month of July. Okay. Um, on your four, this is where we are. Fresh AB boundary in this retracement phase. You see we're creating this little flag type pattern here, right? We don't have any engulfing movements in either direction, right? We're just trickling to the side, which tells me we could see another move down. Okay. So it's just a matter of how deep of a retracement here do we get. Um, that's a good question. That's a good question, Joy. We'll have to look that one up. I don't know how they do that. Um, but that's the retracement there. Coming down to your one, same story. Okay. So we'll continue to monitor to see how things go, fundamentally and technically. Okay. Um, let's take a look at we broke down TSM semiconductors, right? And this is where we are from a daily time frame perspective, 80-20, right? And we said let's look for a move down and see if we can get a low price to get long. We got stochastic in the sell zone. You see, yesterday we gapped down out of that 118, 127 zone, right? We came back and recovered some of this engulfing candle. but are we able to take out these previous highs here? Okay. We broke that level. Are we able to pull back now, right, and get a low price? I would love to see, I'd love to see the semiconductor and even the AI market overall give us a nice retracement, right? So we'll watch and see how things evolve here. But it'd be beautiful to see this 80-20 play out and give us a low price. Even if we got back to that 382, we got some gaps down here in price. So we could see a 170 level on TSM semiconductors. Also with, a lot of your trade situations happening and a lot of that back and forth, it could cause the market to pull back here. Okay. So watching to see if I can get a low price on this, right? And I'll be dollar cost averaging in uh, for long plays, planning this the 276 level. Okay. So watching this here, if we're able to break this level, right, we'll look at our next level at 207. Right. And that's how I kind of monitor those moves as those key levels as price continues to drop and look for opportunities. Okay, so that's where we are on the daily, coming down to your four. Down on the four. I got my deal here. Boom. 80-20 on the four. Right. So if we're able to break that level at 207 gives us a nice low price on the 4 hour time frame. Okay. So if we're not able to break lower here, if we stall, and we get a reversal in the trend line break, that could be our entry here at 207, right? So that's where those key levels will come into play in these retracements, okay? But 80-20 here on the four as well. You see the move starting to the downside, okay? So look for those pullbacks there. And then there on your one also, 80-20, right? And this also is a boundary aligns with that deep retracement on the four, gives us a little bit of confirmation of a key level to watch um, as this retracement continues to evolve. Okay, so we're looking for low prices to get long on TSM semiconductors. Okay, so keep your eyes peeled there for a long-term opportunity. Questions, or even an options opportunity, right? If you get you could play this 80-20 to the downside, but you could also take once we get a low price down in this range, potentially 12.7, right? Look for some options opportunities and buying that back long if that 207 level holds. So that's how you can use the Fibonacci sequence and options and continue to make those plays. Questions on TSM semiconductors? No, no. All right. It's the time to ask questions, good people. Um, Tomorrow my plan is to break down another stock. All right. Give us another analysis on some of the things that I'm looking at. I'm doing some more research in the AI chip space, but I'm also doing research in the AI software space, right? Because that'll be the next move is software. And so what does that look like? What companies are making moves there. So, doing some research in a couple different areas as we continue to evolve these portfolios and provide us opportunities. All right. Any questions on anything that we covered this morning? Dollar General is about to get. What's happening there, Carolyn? For Dollar General? Oh, boycott. I dig it. And some of these, man, right? Some of those boycotts, right? What it does is it gives low prices, right? Even on things like Tesla with the back and forth with Elon Musk and government and yada yada yada. All it's doing is giving us a low price to get back long, right? All it's doing is giving us a low price to get back long. I had Dollar General on my list um, to take a look at, but 8-6 retracement, come back. Maybe we'll get a double bottom here, but ultimately looking for a low price to get long on Tesla, right? Looking at a low price to get long on Tesla, short term and long term. So any pullback we get, I'm buying just because of the things that they're doing in the market in so many different areas, right? Even here, 8-6 retracement, boom, we're coming right back, right? So looking for buying opportunities here on your 1 hour, 786 retracement. Looking for a CDD move here, right? So there's a buying opportunity there on Tesla, looking long. Is there a template to follow to research a stop? Um, I don't have a template. That's a good question. I'll work on building one. And maybe we'll do a session where we do the research live, and I'll show you how we're integrating how we're integrating AI into our process of research and identifying information and opportunities um, in the information that we're pulling out. So um, we'll put that together. Absolutely. Appreciate that thought. Um, okay. Nike, Reebok, Dollar General. For sure. No, we'll definitely put some things together on that. Um, Reebok is an interesting one to watch with Shaq and
That's the exact reason I've been watching his documentary,
yeah, with
and
Shaq
I've
and
been,
AI.
yeah, and then all these contracts that they offering the G League and the high schoolers and stuff like that. So it's like, where is they getting this money to invest in these kids? You know what I'm saying? And then
Well,
with the technology and shoes, still I don't understand technology and shoes, but and stuff like that.
well, you gotta think about where's the money coming from. You gotta think about who Shaq is and how much money Shaq has, right? Because not only does he have that role, but he's also an investor
And AI.
and
Well,
AI.
Allen Iverson. Let me correct
Yes,
everybody.
yes,
The
Allen
real
Iverson.
AI.
Um, so they the company has cash, um, and now their budgets are not as large as your Nike and Under Armour stuff like that, but with the presence, they're getting additional investors as well, and they're getting capital to be able to move with. So, um, it definitely something to look at, and we'll definitely something to look at. Appreciate you bringing that up. We'll dig into those too. Yeah, it's a fun story to watch. Definitely a fun story to watch. All right, good people. Anything else before we wrap it up? Oh, all right. Well, excuse me. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the pre-narc session. You have good news, Deb. What's the good news?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for your encouragement and your support.
Absolutely.
Past week, I have been successful
Oh, you're breaking up.
and
Hey, Deb, can't quite hear you. I don't know if you're on a cell phone. You can move to a slightly different location. You're breaking up a little bit.
sorry. The past week have been successful. I've really worked
Debbie cut out again. The past week you've been successful. Kudos to you. Super excited, but I can't hear the rest of your statement.
Sorry, the past. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Keep talking. I think we can. No, maybe not. Nope, can't hear you, Deb. Oh, we'll see if she logs back in. Reese, that's funny. Um, but success, we love success, right? We love growth. We love the evolution of all of you. So we'll give her a second to log back in, but we'll say preliminary kudos for the growth. We've been putting in a lot of work to um, to make progress. So excited to hear her evolution story as she continues to grow. We'll give another minute or so, and then we'll have her share tomorrow, if she's not able to hop back in. Yes, absolutely. Congratulations on the success with much more to come. All right. It's a process, man. Like we talked about yesterday, on Mindset Monday. I really putting forth the effort, putting forth the effort to grow, putting forth the effort in trusting the process, even when you don't necessarily see the short-term payoffs, right? Trusting that the more you do it, the better you get. Trusting that the more you implement, the more you learn, the more you evolve, the more you fail, the more you have an opportunity to learn and grow. And as we do that, we get better and better and better and better, right? And we had multiple examples yesterday, from Mindset Monday from team members that, just documenting their journeys over the past 4.5 years. They've been able to make major steps in their life just from implementing the things that we talk about and implementing things that they're learning through their journey, right? So the Forex trading, we're not just a trading education company, but we're a growth company, right? We're a growth company, and we're about helping individuals evolve and grow into the people, into the lives, into the experiences that they desire to create for themselves, their family, and their community, right? So that's what it is. So kudos to all of you, right? Deb, kudos to you for the growth, and continue to put in the work and grind through those, uncomfortable, unknown, first few months of figuring it out and feeling like you're failing, but you're starting to see some of those wins. So kudos, and kudos to everybody for the work that you're doing. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the pre-nerve session. You guys have a phenomenal day. Peace.